Hey, what's going on, everybody? We're here out to go to some of the enslaved history. Badagry is where we're going, and a lot of people don't know that Nigeria actually has a lot of relevant slave history, and so that's why I wanted to make sure that I brought you on this tour, because it is it's important to see. So some of the sights and sounds you'll be able to see, and this really reminds me a lot of Miami. So take a look around and enjoy, and then we'll get into the history. All right, this is called a KK. We about to get in, like they call it in Sierra Leone. This is my first time in Nigeria. First time. This is my virgin ride. I'm losing my virginity. All right, getting in. Here we go.
Renovation is going on, construction.
Yeah.
Many years ago, the whole of this environment was actually a marketplace. The whole of this environment was a marketplace. And that mosque, today, that's the Badagry Central Mosque. Okay, this is Badagry Central Mosque.
Okay.
So beside the Central Mosque, there's a place called the Agia Tree Monument, where Christianity was first preached. But it's also under renovation.
And who was it first preached by?
We will come down now. Let's come down. Let's come down quickly. tell. Now, this is the only barracoon in existence that we have now. But in this town, there were about 4 other barracoons in the beginning, but they were all destroyed during the abolition here in Badagry. They were all abolished. But the man called Sebastian William Sabas understand the European way of life. You understand where we get inside when we begin to talk about the history of Sebastian William Sabas. Sebastian William Sabas, you understand what we're talking about. People live in the compound and it's an irony. Look at the 2 entrance doors. These 2 doors have been here when this compound was established in the 1840s. And we tried as much as possible to take care of the entrance door. Ants try to eat it, but it is still there. Who is Sebastian William Sabas? Where are we? We are in Badagry. We are at the barracoon of Sebastian William Sabas. Sebastian Sabas was born originally at a town in Yoruba land called Jogarile. Jogarile is in today's Ogun State, not far from Abeokuta and Ilaro, until he was captured. Now, some argue that he was captured when he was 6. Some said no, 8. Some said 11. 6, 8, 11 means that he was captured when he was young by the Dahomeans. Dahomey today is known as Benin Republic. Dahomey was changed to Benin Republic in 1975. Now, when he was captured and taken to Dahomey, his first owner was an Islamic scholar and a slave trader by the name of Abbas. So they call him Abbas. Abbas sold him to an European by the name of William. So they call him Williams Abbas. His real name was Fare Milekun. His father's name was Fagbemi. But an enslaved person don't have a name. They bear their owner's name.
So there were enslaved people in Africa. Because a lot of people think the only people who were enslaved were in Brazil and America and the Caribbean, but there were actually enslaved people in Africa who lost their names. Is that accurate?
He was owned by international people.
Okay. But
don't forget that he was taken to Brazil.
So he was taken to Brazil.
He was taken to Brazil.
And then he came back.
And he came back.
Okay.
Now, how did Sebastian William Sabas come back? When they got there, his owners realized that there was something unusual about him. Rather than sell him, he took him to his house and made him a domestic slave. So he was working in the master's house. He treated him well. He taught him how to read and write, which was illegal at that time because the owner could have gone to jail, could go to jail at that time. But you see, at a point when he became a young man, whenever Mr. William got to do his business, which was slave trading, he would take him along. Consciously, he was teaching him his trade. What was his trade? Slave trading. Because it got to a time that Mr. William decided that instead of him coming back to Africa, he needed someone to represent him here. And he sent this man back to West Africa as his own representative. A lot of university students argue that why did he allow to work for his owner? Now, the option he had was either to continue to be a slave or work for his owner as a slave trader. So when he returned to West Africa, he first settled down at the colony of Lagos, where we call Lagos Island today. Okay, from Lagos Island, he came to settle down here in Badagry. There were people doing the trade here, but when he got to this town, he dominated every one of them because he could read, he could write, he could speak English, Dutch, Portuguese, and Spanish, which was unusual for an enslaved person. And don't forget, he still have Mr. Williams in Brazil, who was sending other Europeans to him, and according to local history, we're made to understand that people trust him easily. He was a loyalist. If you are dedicated to him, he will be dedicated to you. And he was very, very intelligent. So because he won't cheat you, he has connection with the Europeans. Everyone in the interland want to do business with him. In the year 1895, the British made him the ruler of Badagry. 1895. The British made him the ruler of Badagry, and he ruled this town from 1895 till his death in 1919. There's a place in this compound called the Native Court. I'll take you there, where he governs. He administers the villages and towns that were under Badagry.
So was he a slave trader?
Of course, in this town, he was still working for Mr. Williams.
Okay.
He was a representative of Mr. Williams. But oral history also told us that at a point, the British realized that they have to work with him. if they don't work with him, they may not really achieve their aims. So at the point in time, he was also working with the British to stop the business because of his influence. He was very, very rich in this town. And there are some documents I'll show you inside, because I tell people the slave trade didn't just end. What happened is that the Europeans changed the name and they were controlling the trade because they want to stop it, but it was still going on. There's a document I'll show you that someone was brought from the interland and the person was not called a slave. The Seriki Abbas was given a permit and that person was called domestic servant.
Okay.
Behind us are some of the items that were used in exchange for human beings in this town. In Badagry, like the umbrella, bottle of gin, the cannon gun, the value of the big cannon gun, unfortunately, in Badagry was 100 human beings. 40. The Dane gun, ceramic bowl, mirror, beads, and so many other items that were used in exchange. There are 40 rooms in this compound, and in each of the rooms, they kept 40 human beings. We'll go inside now. All the rooms in this compound looks like the one we'll enter.
Okay.
Come in. Come in. Okay. Let them come in. Come. Him. He's with me. He works for me. Okay. Now.
Anastasia.
All the rooms looks like this. But you see, the first room was not here in the beginning. It was referred to as the inspection room. When the Europeans come, they select the enslaved people. Now, they inspect them, they check the eyes, they check the dentition, and they hit them in the stomach to be sure they are strong enough to work on the plantation, where they are being taken to. In the middle of the 19th century, because there were so many of them around, they were no more inspecting them here. They were inspecting them in the compound. So they kept 40 human beings here, another 40 in the inner room that we'll visit. Now, I made a copy of Seriki Abbas' handwriting for people to see what his handwriting looks like. And there's a research work on Seriki Abbas. Some of the things I won't tell you. Someone wrote a research work, on Seriki Abbas. So you can check the title and just check him out to get other information about Seriki Williams Abbas. In the year 1895, the British made him the ruler of this town. This was him in 1895 when he became the ruler of Badagry. He ruled for 24 years. Someone was carrying an umbrella over his head. The value of an umbrella was actually 40 human beings. Now, this very umbrella you are looking at was used that time. But you see, this is not original. It was not there that time. In 2019, we had a public lecture in this compound to talk about Seriki Abbas. So the family, the descendant decided to add this to it to make it look like an umbrella. But this is the original cloth on it. You can see that it's different. But because it was tattered, it was torn, that was why they added this to it. Now, try and lift it up from here.
From right here? Just try to pick it up?
So, if he's outside for 1 hour, you have to carry this over his head for that long. Imagine how heavy it is. Now, haven't you noticed that in Africa, even in Ghana, whenever the chief or the king is walking on the street, someone usually carry an umbrella over their head. The idea began during the slave trade. It was in the medieval time in Europe, it was fashionable for the ladies to go around with the umbrella. They used the same idea. They sold that idea to the kings that they needed something to differentiate them from the ordinary person on the street. And they came with the idea. And Cuba, who had become, after the revolt, the Malay revolt in Brazil. So, but a lot of them have scars. Some have piercings on their lips. And she became conscious and she will ask them, what happened to you? So the returnees were narrating their ordeals. So meaning that some of the African chiefs don't even know what they were using them for.
I heard that in Ghana too. Yeah.
They didn't know what they were using them for. So,
even after 400 years, 500 years, they didn't know.
No, not 500 years.
Yeah.
I'm talking about 1800s. maybe toward the end of 1800s.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
So it started say 1500, and then it went to 1800.
No, it depends on the area.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
if we're talking about 1500, we're talking about places like Mauritania, Senegal, Gambia area. It became big here
and Ghana too.
Yeah,
because Elmina was built around that same time.
when, mind you, Elmina was not built to keep enslaved people.
Right, not initially.
Elmina was built to keep the gold.
Right.
Why do you think
Right.
we have so many? The cannon guns that you see in the castle
Protecting
in
the
Elmina
gold.
was to protect the gold, not the slaves.
Right. So Cape Coast was built for enslaved.
Yes.
By the British.
Yes.
Got
But Elmina
initially
was built,
Yeah, initially.
to protect the
Right.
gold.
Right.
You see the difference?
Right.
So they kept the women here. So we'll leave now.
All right. So the women were in here.
Now, the major difference between the men's room and the women's room was that they kept the women and they kept the children with the women.
Okay.
So if you have 40 women here, there may be maybe 2 or 3 children with them. But the question is, how many of the children will have survived under such a condition?
Right.
They urinated on themselves, they excreted on themselves. When the women have their menstrual cycle, they did it on themselves. In 1895, in Badagry, when Seriki Abbas became the ruler of this town, his Brazilian friends presented him this. This was the same cloth he wore in the picture you saw in the first room. This is what his house looks like. And you see the design is Brazilian architecture. Okay? Governor
Brazilian
McGregor,
architecture.
yeah. Governor McGregor of the colony of Lagos gave him this staff, recognizing him as the paramount ruler. Now, some years ago, I found this in the compound. So all the old people, they were born here. I asked them, I said, what were they doing with this metal? And they told me that they don't know what they were doing with it. But when they were kids, they used to stand on it at night and have their bath. So I Googled Henry Pulley and Sons Limited. And to my surprise, Henry Pulley and Sons Limited is still in existence in England even today. Okay,
So they're still making money.
Yes, established in the 1820s, around 1825. So it means that Seriki Abbas at the point in time had business dealings with them. Now, his house, the entrance door to his house is what we have here because the building collapsed in 1995.
Even the family recognized that there was something wrong with what their ancestor did.
This chair, we call this chair Seriki Abbas relaxation chair. We actually use this chair. We don't have record of the age. So the women were kept here. I told you of a document. Now, certificate of registration after the abolition of the slave trade. So people in this town, no other person have a permit like this except Seriki Abbas. You can see. Number 7, this certified that William Abasi of Badagry, who brought into the colony of Lagos from Ilorin for the purpose of domestic servant having the custody of an alien child, male named Faith. And here, male don't bear Faith. So they don't even know the name of that person. They just give the person a name for documentation of the tribe of Kukawa as registered the same child in conformity with Lagos Alien Children Registration Ordinance 1877 as in the Badagry Register at the above mentioned number is particularly stated. Dated but in Badagry 6th of June 1895. So only people like Seriki Abbas own such document, but that's the origin of housemaid or servants in this country. So let's see his court and where he was buried.
All right.
I will lock you in here for real. Something that is unique about the well. The same bricks they were used to build this compound is what you will find inside. Look at the edges. They were placed there because this town is sandy. So if you dig a well here, if care is not taken, it will fall over. So the enslaved people were the one who placed the bricks around it to prevent it from collapsing. The ring, this ring was not there originally. Now it's the same bricks.
A lot of people don't talk about Brazil and the slave trade because in America we think the way they teach us is we're the only ones who went through it the worst and we're the ones the majority and we're the special tribe and we're this, that, and the other. And then you go to Brazil and they're 2.5 times the amount of Afro-Brazilians, and that conversation is, I don't hear it a lot. So to come to Nigeria and to hear this part of it in Brazil, because I always go back to Brazil after going to Brazil and seeing all of the Afro-Brazilians who look just like me. That was deep. I was like, wow. So this is another piece of the puzzle.
No, that was Sir Keba's court. That was what? Where he passes judgment on all the villages and towns that were under Badagry. That was his court. And that was his inner chamber.
Okay.
So I told you that he had a house.
Yes.
You saw the picture. This is found here. You can see the foundation.
Oh, wow. Look at that. So
Collapsed in 1995.
it just collapsed.
Yeah.
And that's the
It was locked
foundation.
up. There was no movement within it.
And it just mold and decay.
And it says thanks outside this fence to my left.
That's the foundation.
So let's quickly see the other couple.
Okay. And that's his grave right there, right?
Yeah, we are going there. They call it a Mausoleum.
Yes.
That's what this compound looks like originally.
Okay.
The whole compound looks like that. Clay holding the bricks together.
Got it.
There was nothing like the cement here at that time. So all the rooms in this compound looks like the rooms.
And the other ones. And so people live here now.
Yes, unfortunately. Paracoon is the only evidence of is the major evidence of the transatlantic slave trade in Badagry.
Well, let me throw something your way. In America, they have this movement of people who say the slave trade never happened. I'm serious. When I told the guy this in Ghana, it was almost like, he was like, oh, wait. It's like, it sounds crazy, but that's what we have. See how they got us messed up? This whole colonization got us twisted.
Here we have the evidence. And why I say that...
But they say the evidence isn't the evidence.
Now, you see, here, when you look at... Now, they can come and accommodate what we have here.
But they won't come. They won't come. They won't come. They won't.
There are 40 rooms in this compound. And in each of the 40 rooms, there are 40 human beings. Minimum of 1,600 human beings were kept here for between maybe a month or 2 months, depending on when the slave ship arrives.
Okay.
At the point of no return on Berefu here in Badagry.
Yes.
So I said this is the major evidence because this was where they were actually kept.
Yeah, but they're very adamant, and a whole lot of people follow them, and it's real.
That's why someone like you is here.
Yeah.
And you go back to tell them the truth of what is on ground because you are here, and we need to keep this. Because we can't do it alone.
Because that's how people rewrite history. And they begin to tell their own stories. When you erase certain pieces of evidence and people, their minds have already been messed up by colonization, it makes them easy prey for somebody to come and tell them something that's clearly, or they'll pick a little piece of truth and then they'll run with it. So
that's the importance of digitization. We need to keep these documents. We need to document our past so that our children can learn from it and know where they are from originally. Let's see where Seriki Williams is about.
Yes.
Seriki Williams Abbas died 11 June 1919. He was buried according to Islamic rites here. None of his contemporaries had a mausoleum like this built for them. It shows how important it must have been that time. You want me to call him up?
Sure. I got some questions for him.
I'll send you his email.
Yes. No, I got some questions for him.
Seriki Williams Abbas had 128 wives.
What I found fascinating was learning about this part of history and the connection between Africa and Brazil in Nigeria. While I don't celebrate any slave trader, to include this one, I do believe it's important for us to learn these stories and get a broader context to the story.
Open up your eyes and see all the fun and mystery. Take an African adventure with Darren.
Adventures of Darren and Destiny. And Darren and Destiny are twin brother and sister, and you go on their adventures throughout the African diaspora, meaning so African diaspora destinations, primarily focused in Africa, but we go to South America, we're going to go to the Caribbean. Their first book is going to take you to Ghana, and then we're going to go on a safari. And from there, we're going to go to Ethiopia, and then we go to Salvador, Brazil. And what the goal is to be able to inspire curiosity in the continent of Africa, in our children from a very young age, and to really tell a more accurate story. Most of our children are exposed to negative images, late night infomercials about how bad things are, everybody's sick, everybody's poor, everyone's uneducated, but that's simply not true. So what Darren and Destiny and their family do is they go to different African destinations. They are learning about these different places. You're beginning to see positive images, but still telling the truth. I mean, that's the important thing, to tell the truth about some of the things that have occurred. But it's all done on our children's level so they begin to understand it. And it begins to pique their curiosity. They begin to learn more. And hopefully one day they will want to explore and visit the continent of Africa and its many countries. There's just so much that Darren and Destiny are able to do, and as they're doing it, it's like they begin to open the minds of a new generation, and they don't get bombarded and indoctrinated with negativity. They're actually able to see positivity and inspiring images and messages about the African diaspora, as well as those who are still indigenous to the continent of Africa, and they begin to learn more and just see things differently. So I'm excited about introducing the Adventures of Darren and Destiny.